All right.
Okie dokie, we're off. So, ciao,
Yes.
Michelangelo. Come stai?
Yes. I am very well. Thank you. Thank you.
Good, good. It's lovely to have you.
And I
Thank,
see you
thank you,
look also very good. So thank you
thank
for
you.
inviting me to this interview. Thank you so much.
Absolute pleasure. Yeah, no, thank you for joining us at Wise Women Weekdays. And for those watching this, please either like, subscribe, share, and comment so we can get all some wonderful information. So today on the sofa we have Michelangelo, who's over in Italy. I don't know whereabouts are you in Italy? Are you in
We have
Milan or?
just on the outskirts of Monza, there is the Formula One Grand Prix. It's 10 miles from Milano, 10 miles
Oh,
north of
okay.
Milano.
That's a good girl. And I just
So you
love
can
the
locate,
accent.
me. Yes,
Okay. I'm not going to
yes.
speak much, so I can just listen to this Italian accent. I just love it. I love it.
Thank-
Something very
Sorry for being so.
special.
30 years ago, I was living for 12 years in Canada. It was much better. Now, staying in Italy, it has lost a little bit of the feeling.
Really, that's interesting. If you're in your own country, surely you should be, improving your natural accent. That's very strange.
No, but because I have to speak in English, but nobody is correcting me because unfortunately, I have to give lectures, interviews, and very, very rarely they correct me. When I was in Canada, my girlfriend was correcting me, and I was improving the accent and everything. So that's why in the last 32 years, I lost my improvements and I became more Italianish accent.
Well, that's the accent that I'm referring to that I love. Yeah, I love it. I love it. I think we all do.
Okay. Like, do you remember the fish called Wanda? You know, when
Yes,
the
of course.
Jamie Lee Curtis, she was excited with a foreign accent.
Yeah, well, I don't something very special about Italian accents. I'm French as well. That does it for me. But we'll
All
move
that.
on. We'll move on from accents. Let's talk about you. So I've just got your biography up here. So you're kind of into holistic well-being and alternative
Yes.
health. Can you give us a bit of a background? I mean, what is it that you actually do?
Well, what I do is normally I'm teaching a system which I developed ex- also extracting from my experiences and also from my studies and everything. So I teach people how to maintain their health and to consider that the sickness is not the enemy that has to be fought, but it is the way that the body is trying to protect and survive itself. So my main teaching is this with all the branches which include this kind of philosophy. So I have to teach that some foods are mistakes, so they have to be corrected. So I teach also to eat proper food for the body. I have to teach them to recognize the signals of the body, especially through the pains, through the sicknesses, what the body is trying to do and to mean, what kind of mistakes have been done, and so on. So, and then I give lectures how the body works, the laws of healing, the laws of sickness. I'm also teaching techniques how to improve the energy, and improving the energy. This would imply that the body would activate the cleaning process and will help the cleansing and the release of what normally are called sickness. And that's which is a big work. It's a big endeavor because when you touch these subjects, when you touch the food in the unconscious, you touch the mother and the security that the mother is giving in our unconscious. So the people start already to have resistances and fears and everything. When you touch the sickness, you may be sure that the people are so scared about the pain, about the sickness, and they search in the normal world the security, where unfortunately for my philosophy is exactly the opposite. It's like to search to save yourself in the lion's den. So that then we can talk a lot about this. So you can put me some more questions and decide what or
Mm.
where you want to go deeper in this kind of landscape,
Okay.
which I already gave you.
Let's, I mean, I can see your background here because I've got the biography on my screen, but can you tell us a little bit about what has brought or how you have got to where you are? What is your background so that you have all this information to share with the world?
Okay, okay. So I was born in a normal middle class family in Italy. My father was, came back from the war very late. He was 7 years in a concentration camp, and my mother was a teacher. So it was just a normal middle class family. And I was brought up with a middle class normal upbringing. I went to a very good secondary school, very elite type, because my father was very keen in education. And then when he wanted me to become a doctor, and I did not want absolutely, because when I was a child, probably had maybe bigger traumas in relationship with what the medicine does to the babies. So automatically and unconsciously was really rejecting this kind of direction. And my father could not accept it after spending so big money in this preparation, in this education. I did not want to be in the medical field, and I wanted maybe to enter in more what was considered healthy. You see, the sports, the movement, and everything as a character. It was my inclination. Then I asked my aunt, who was a great psychologist in Italy, to ask her teacher, she was in Canada, if she would accept me to be there for whatever reason, where I could study and live away from my father. And it was in 1971. And this doctor, this psychologist, she was probably considered one of the best child psychologists in the world. She was the chairman of the child psychology department in the University of Ottawa. And then she accepted me for 1 year in 72, from 71 to 72, where she was already so up to date and advanced, and she was applying very advanced psychological therapies, but she did not forget the physical side of the human body. So she was already applying Dr. Herbert Shelton's indications. So the children were becoming vegan, not having animal food, sugar, and all the processed food and everything. And when the children were staying in her center, they were showing very beautiful improvements. And soon as they were going home, because they were coming back with the parents which probably were not supporting this kind of direction, the children were coming back already with all the problems and everything. And she was always telling me, we cannot do a psychological therapy or process if the children are not in a good balance on the physical level. So that's why she was already applying the Shelton's principles, which you can find because Herbert Shelton has been one of the greatest natural doctors in the past century. And she was going very often in Florida, in Bonita Springs, where he had a beautiful center, which was called Shangri-La. And I was, let's say, observing what she was doing, but as an Italian teenager, I
Mm.
did not get into it very deeply because it was not so attractive. Imagine, even if I was naturally vegetarian as a child, but the food in Italy, even for vegetarian, is still a little bit tasty. This food was not very tasty, was not palatable or attractive for a teenager. In the meantime, I was also enjoying the sweets, let's say like the ice cream, ice creams, cakes, and all these. And plus, I was crazy for the pasta and tomato, spaghetti and
Mm.
tomato, lasagna, and all these things. And she was telling me, no, the tomato are poison. You should eat, or they are fruits. You should eat them alone, as Shelton says. And who can dare in Italy to eat just the tomatoes alone? It was impossible. And this was 52 years ago, 50,
Mm.
almost 53. And but anyhow, these informations arrived and were stored in my back of the brain. So then, when I came back to Italy, because unfortunately for the military service, you could not stay away unless you have a special reason, and they did not allow me. So I have to be back and apply to the Italian university, and I wanted to be a physical education teacher, and my father absolutely was against. So we crashed, and I left home, and then I got very stressed, a lot of problems you can imagine. So when finally I was able to enter in this university, which was very, very, very selective, and without any little push, you could not enter. So to arrive to this. I entered, but I started to show signs of decaying of my body, and I could not show it, otherwise I would be dismissed. And I was a volleyball player, and I had a very beautiful team at the time. And the doctor of the team gave me the analysis and the diagnose, and he told me that I needed to do deeper checks in the hospitals, and in the hospitals I saw the specialists fighting to decide what kind of sickness that they never saw in me. They saw that there was an enlargement of the liver. Somebody was saying it's a cirrhosis. Another one was a liver decaying. They asked me if I was drinking alcohol, and I was not. If I was taking drugs, and I was not. So the only point on which they were agreeing was that I had to die with a liver like this in a very short time. They gave me 3 months. In effect, I was without energy. I could not digest anything. My physical performance was very low, and they gave me some test medicine, some experimental medicines, and they told me also, if you use this medicine, you could not drive, because otherwise you would have the reflexes impaired. And one morning I was so feeling so bad, I took this medicine before going to teach, because I was already earning my university working as a teacher. And I had a big accident, and in that accident, I always repeat, it was like to open another level of consciousness. And I recognize what Dr. Sidlauskas, my first mentor in Canada, she was saying. And I say, if my liver is out of order, it's probably because I've eaten the wrong food and I'm doing so much stress and everything. So I started by myself. I took off all the medicine, and I started by myself, only eating what I remembered, which was vegetables with no tomatoes, no potatoes, and all this, and grains and derivatives of grains and pulses and fruits. Finish. And in few months, I recovered in a way that I was so happy, because say maybe I found the right medicine, because I was not so believer in the chemistry and in the
Mm,
medicine already at that time. I was believing in the natural life.
mm,
And but at a certain point, 3 months later, I felt so sick, so noxious. I was thinking I was a die. I was vomiting without eating, and I thought, okay, I'm gonna die. My 3 months have already expired, what the doctors
mm.
told me. And I went in my little apartment in Milano, and I thought I was going to die. And I passed out, and I woke up maybe 1 day and a half later, and I was thinking it was like I was in another dimension, because my body was fantastic. I felt as never felt in my life up to that point. And then, as everybody can do the mistake, I thought, oh, now I'm healed. I got almost a miracle, so I can have again the food which I was craving, because it was social food, was affective food, and everything. So I called my best friend and say, we can celebrate, because I'm feeling so well. We can go out and we can celebrate with a pizza. Jesus, when I went to the to this pizzeria, which was very famous, and with all friends, I could not eat the pizza. My body was rejecting it. I was almost having vomit burst. And then I told my friend, you please eat for me because I don't want to show that I do all this organization and we cannot have, and I don't eat. And then I realized that my body was not accepting the food that Dr. Sidlaskar was mentioning. Shelton was uh, was saying it was not good for the body. So then I say, oh my God, I feel like in a trap. Then, because of my classic studies, I remember of a king of it was called Pontus. It was the actual Turkey, a king in the ancient ages. He was afraid to be killed by his enemies, so he was taking every day a little bit of poison to immunize himself. The name of this king was Mithridates, and in the medicine you study that this this process of this this behavior, this function is called mithridatization. Is when you take a little bit of a poison in order to adjust the body not to react to it, and then you become immune to this poison. Doing this in 1 year, I was able to go back to the, let's say, not the normal life diet, but I would say 70% of it. But in the meantime, also my body performance was decaying again. In the meantime, I was having very good results in the university. I was chosen as an assistant of one of the best professors, and this professor was like a father for me. And when I finished this university, he told me, now you cannot stay only with the physical education university degree, but you have to also apply to the medical university because I want you to be my future substitute. And if you're not a doctor, I cannot do that. So, oh my God, I say, I don't want to do that. Is what you ask me is really the most painful thing. Just the thinking to go to the medical university was like an allergy, let's say. Anyhow, because I loved him so much, probably I loved him more than my father, I accepted and I went to the medical university and I attended it for 5 years. Till then he was killed because this was the terrible period in Italy in which the brigadists were killing the best people to create the terror. And because he was a very great person, he was killed. And then in that moment, I lost my mentor, and it was just a devastating blow
Let
to
me
my
just pause you there.
person.
When you say he was killed, what do you mean? He died naturally or
They
something
shot
occurred?
him when he was going out of his house. He was greeting his wife on the balcony, and he was driving his car. They went there with guns. They killed him. Yes,
And that's
it was a
because of his
shock
son.
for
It,
many
it-
people, but for me, it was like a father for me. So
yeah,
it was a really
very painful.
big
But
blow.
but but
In
did they
the,
shoot him to remove him because of the kind of work that he was doing?
yes, because he was fighting for the life of his patients because he was the director of all the hospitals of Milano. And then in that period, there were very violent strikes among the nurses, among the people who were working in the hospital, and many people died because they were not attended. So he was obliged by the law to inform the authorities and the police. And this put on him the highlights of the revenge of these terrorists. So they killed him, because of this. Anyhow, after this, my period of medicine was finished, and also I could concentrate more on what I liked very much because I was already very good in normal massage, energetical massage, reflexology, acupuncture at the time. That now I don't do anymore because I prefer to do the reflexology, which is more, let's say, more creating a educational process for the receiver, because when you do the reflexology that I developed, you can feel the pain, and with this pain you understand the level of energy that your body, or the level of complaint that your body organs are signaling, they are giving the signal.
Mhm.
So then I started to develop this more and more, And I had this Dr. Sidlauskas was actually in Milano for a group of conferences that she was giving. And I gave her a treatment because she had a dislocated shoulder that was not mended after 1 year or maybe 8 months. And she said, I went to all the chiropractors or the physiatrists and orthopedics in North America, but nobody says, everybody says that the shoulder is okay, but they cannot move it. So then I say, okay, Agatha, let me, because she was asking what I was doing and I could not explain it perfectly because we were in 81. So it was not yesterday, it was 33 years ago. No, or more, no, 43 years ago. Yes,
Mm.
43 years ago. I
Mm.
lose track of the time, And I told her, I do this. If you like, I can give you a treatment on your foot which could unblock your shoulder. And she said, do whatever it can be possible because I cannot use the right arm. And she was also a big advocate of the right hand use against the left-handed because this is also a little bit bigger work to explain in the psychological level, in the learning processes and everything. And I was shocked because I was seeing that she was using the left hand in taking anything, drinking, eating, and doing it, and trying to write because she could not use the right arm totally. So
Mm.
I gave her for another half an hour the treatment, which was very painful, but she accepted it. And after half an hour, she could move the shoulder, she could touch her head. She started to cry because she said, it's more than 8 months that I could not touch my hair, touch my head. You don't know what you have done. So she told me, you are invited the next summer, which was it was spring at that time, to come to my school. She had also a private school outside of Ottawa, and you can teach this to my professor, my teachers,
Mm.
because they could help my children much. And then I went there during the summer, but nobody was interested, probably because they saw that I was Italian. There was a little bit of racial
Resistance.
resistance or whatever. They did not want to learn more. They were thinking that already the psychology would help what they were studying. So they refused to learn. And so I went with Agatha she had a congress in Washington, and I went with her, and I stood almost all the week in the Smithsonian, watching the Smithsonian, especially the Air and Space Museum, because I am crazy and fond of aviation and flying and everything. So when I came back, the best assistant of Agatha came in the morning, and he had a face which was like an horrible um, figure, grimace. And I asked him, Jack, what have you done? It's 3 days. I cannot sleep because of toothache. And they opened the tooth already 3 times or 2 times, and they don't find anything. The tooth is perfect, only I cannot sleep. And I say, I can understand because it's not the tooth, it's a meridian, which is indicating that an organ is not happy. If you like, I say I can give you a little treatment on the foot, and then if it works, good for you. Then he was one of the most resistant at the start to when Agatha proposed that I would teach them some reflexology. And yes, so he accepted. Say whatever. It's like Agatha with her shoulder. His toothache was so horrible that he accepted. And
Mm.
after 20 minutes, he was unbelievable, shocked because he had no more pain. And then I told him, you see, how do you do that? That's what I did to Agatha, what I'm doing to you is what Agatha wanted you to learn. Yeah, now I want to learn. I said, yes, but tomorrow I'm leaving. So he said, no, I will come to Italy. I want to learn that. It's so incredible. He said, okay, you can come when you feel. Then he came in the period of Christmas, I remember. In that time, I was still studying all the natural aspects of the therapies and everything. And he came, and it was an incredible experience also for him because he was, from when he was young, he had always cold feet.
Mm.
And during that period, we have the first oil crisis. It was, and they were obliging us to close the heating during the nights, and my apartment was hollow. Underneath there was a porch. There was a porch, so it was very cold. And so I was telling him, let's heat with the heaters, but it was not so good. And during the night, I saw him walking in the corridor of my apartment with the light on. So I woke up and he told me, I have so freezing cold feet, and I cannot sleep. So I can, okay, Jack, I will give you a connective. A connective is another technique in which I am teaching for many years. It's a neurological massage which opens the pathways of energy, directly connected with the nervous system through the connective tissue, which is underneath the skin. So I started to give this, and then when he started to tell me, "Oh, my legs are now warm. I feel the warmth going down to the ankles." So I said, "Okay, we can stop this. It will go by itself." And then in the morning we wake up, and I ask, "So how was the night?" He say, "The legs were warm, but the feet were still cold." So he told me, "Okay, tonight we will do a treatment up to when the feet will be hot, and the tips of the toes." And we did it. And when he felt warm, the toes, I said, "Let's do another 10 minutes just to make sure that, just make sure." And then we did that. Then we went to sleep in my room, in his room. And during the night, I see again the light in the corridor. And I get out and I see Jack walking with bare feet. I had a marble floor because he was trying to cool down the feet on the floor. He said, "It's impossible. What have we done?" Before I was suffering all my life cold feet, and now I suffer hot feet. Don't worry, it will balance. And then he became my best friend in Canada. And he told me, "I want to come in the summer to learn more from you." And I said, "What, in this summer?" I have already planned to go to Germany to learn iridology, because at that time the considered best iridology school in Italy was the German school. And he said, "Okay, let me see, let me think." Then he went back to Ottawa in January, the start of January. A few days later, he calls me and he say, "You don't go to Germany to do iridology. You come to Ottawa. I already registered you. I already booked for you. We have the best school in the world, which is Dr. Jensen's school. Is a branch of Dr. Jensen's school, who was the greatest iridologist probably in history. He has written so many books, and he became also my teacher. We also became friends. And then this branch was the Canadian School of Natural Healing, I don't remember, Canadian College of Natural Healing. I remember still the address, Forest Street, 580. I was there for many years. And then I went there in summer, and they offered me also to teach in Dr. Sidlowska school. And I was doing, at that time, I was also a martial art instructor. So I was applying a method for the children to learn them the education and the discipline. I was teaching karate to the children. I still have the pictures, which I was doing outdoors during the physical activity. Was this experiment they did, and they were very happy. And in the evening, I was going to the evening school, the evening school of this college, where they told me, "If you want, instead of studying only the iridology, we recognize all the scientific subject that you have done already in the Italian university. So you have to do only 13 or 14, uh, I don't know, modules of this, and in 3 years you can graduate with us, and you will have the title to be it's called natural, yes, counselor, yes." And then I said, "Okay, let's do it." Also economically, it was almost the same if I took a 3 years course only for iridology, then all the 3 year modules and everything. So I started to do that. And there was bionutrition, bioenergy and nutrition, the healing laws of the body and everything. And some of them I knew already. Some were new for me, but the biggest shock was when I entered in the first class of the bioenergy and nutrition, and the teacher said, remember that our principle is that nature is perfect. And this seems quite obvious, then I said, well, why does he emphasize so much this principle that nature is perfect? And then I went back to my studies when I was a college, let's say a secondary school student in the boarding school, where I was studying philosophy, which I hated deeply, that you cannot imagine, because I was thinking philosophy in that time was useless loss of time, just to brain gimmicks and everything. And then I remember that in the 1700 there was these philosophers, let's say in Europe and also in America, who said that now there was no more the religion to rule the life of the human beings, but there was the intelligence of the human being, which with the science, which is its best expression, has to rule the life and bring to humanity all what is written also in the American Constitution: happiness to the people, no pain, no sickness, and everything, meaning that nature is almost perfect, but is not perfect because in nature there are the sickness, the pain, the sufferance, and death. And when in that moment it was like a bulb exploding in my brain, and then I said, my God, now I understand the philosophy meaning. And I said, now I understand why this teacher is saying that nature is perfect. Because from this, when you understand the concept of nature is perfect, then I always ask to my student, what is then the sickness? Is an expression of the perfection. So if there is a perfection, that nature is perfect, that sickness is a perfect expression of the body, why the body is doing such expression? And then you understand that the sickness is how the body is trying to cope with your mistakes. So then entitles us to understand what I was always very, very curious when I was studying, that the Chinese doctors of the Chinese emperor 5,000 years ago were paid only if the patients that they had to take care would not be sick. So the contract of the doctors 5,000 years ago was that the patients should be healthy. If the patients were not healthy or they were sick, they would not be paid. So imagine if we do this in this actual world, all the doctors would be penniless, penniless, yes, poor. When they become rich on the sickness of the people.
Yes.
And then, but this is also incredible, because these doctors, they were not stupid. They knew acupuncture, everything, all the laws of the human body. They were teaching to the people how not to become healthy, just to keep the health. So they were teaching them what to eat, what to do, some natural practices to use, the hot and the cold, the herbs and everything. And because the people were healthy, they were also paid. Then it happened that in 95, I started to go in Japan, and I was teaching in Japan for 25 years. And my Japanese students mostly loved me very much, probably because I was also Italian. In Japan, the Italians are very, I don't know, yes, and fashionable. So, and one student one day brought me an ancient history book of Japan. And in this book was written that 4,000 years ago in Japan, who was caught or discovered that he was eating meat would have been put in jail for 1 month. And those who have been found eating fish, they would be put in jail for 3 days. And he said, but why did they do that? I don't understand. This is written in the history book. Then I said, remember, we have to study history. The Chinese empire was affecting also the Japanese empire. And the Japanese emperors, they also followed mostly of the reforms and the ways of the Chinese emperors. And probably they had the same structure with the doctors, but the doctors were so good and they were teaching the people not to do certain things. But if the people were becoming sick, they were inquiring like detectives what this person has done, and maybe they have found that this person got sick because he has eaten some meat, or despite the doctor told him not to eat, or they have eaten some fish despite the doctor did tell them not to eat. So he was going to the magistrate telling this, and the magistrate would condemn the person to the jail and the money to the doctor. So this was another step forward in the understanding of this widespread culture, which was at the base of a much healthier society in a way, because the interest of the doctor would have complied, or would have, let's say, unify with the interest of the patient. When now the interest of the patient, of course, is always the same. The people want to stay healthy, and I think everybody wants to stay healthy. But the interest of the doctor is a little bit different. Is to mend the sickness, to correct the sickness, to kill the sickness, neutralize the symptoms. And on this, the medical school has become really a decayed structure, because they study only what because now the universities are mostly financed by companies, multinational companies, pharmaceutical companies, chemical
It's big
companies.
pharma, isn't it? It doesn't.
And
Yeah, if we're going to be healthy, people aren't making money, so it's in their interest not to get us healthy and to keep medicating us. So
perfect,
Leslie, can you
perfect.
had amazing listening to what you're saying there. Thank you for such an amazing description of your past, starting from the food. And I had questions, but I didn't want to interrupt your flow. You're talking
Don't
initially
worry, don't
about
worry. You
food.
interrupt, you don't disturb me. I
Well,
just speak
it's
freely there.
yeah, I just
Tell me,
wanted to
tell me.
hear your whole story. So you're talking about kind of we are what we eat, aren't we? Really, and
Yeah,
I always thought the Mediterranean diet was very healthy. Tomatoes, for instance, but you said tomatoes aren't quite so healthy. No, you said they're poisonous, toxic. That's very interesting.
absolutely. I am the living proof that I was dying thanks to tomatoes. But
Really.
anyhow, also here we should study a little bit deeper the history. And the tomatoes arrived in Europe only after America was discovered. So they arrived in the 1500.
Mm.
Before, the tomatoes and the potatoes and the peppers were not used. They were starting to use the aubergine, the melanzane, They came through Marco Polo. Marco Polo brought them from China you remember the book Il Milione, this book in which Marco Polo was illiterate. He could not write. He
Mm.
was dictating his book when he was made prisoner in a navy battle between Pisa and Genoa, and
Yeah.
he was then he was freed. He was ransomed, and he was well, he was dictating his story, and this prisoner mate was writing his all his stories. It's a beautiful book to read. It's very interesting, and he was telling that the Chinese were using this aubergine, but only after they put under salt for many weeks, because the salt has the capacity to extract the poison or neutralize the poison. But when we speak about, then I will tell you what's happened also for the tomato, the potatoes, and the eggplant and the peppers, because there is also this beautiful. Uh, I suggest also to you and maybe your listeners and your friends to watch this Is a long movie. Is on 3 DVDs. On 3 DVDs. It is a combined work between BBC and Italian radio television, which was done in the 80s. It was a conjunct work, and it was the life of Christopher Columbus, which was interpreted by an English actor, James Byrne, I think. And
Yeah.
you can understand why we received these poisonous vegetables, because how the Spanish treated the Native Americans.
Mm.
And then immediately, because the Spanish, because remember that Columbus wanted to conquer every new land or new population he would discover, he would have given to the Spanish court, and the Spanish court was the most bigot court in that time in Europe, and the Queen Isabella was called also the bigot queen, because she was only religion. He wanted to pass to the history as the savior of the Catholic religion. And so there was the Inquisition period also. You will see in the movie that Columbus was also put under the trial of the Inquisition, and he was able to come out of it alive. And when he arrived he discovered the America. It was really dramatic. But Lattuada is the art director of this movie. Lattuada has been a very good art director in Italy in that period. He has reproduced all the real characters and the situations, and you see how the second trip of Columbus in America, he arrives with the Inquisitor that was
Mm.
putting him under trial in Spain, and then they killed all the populations which
Mm.
did not want to become Christians. So these people could not defend themselves. Also, the Spanish brought a lot of sickness over there, and it's happened like with the American Indians
Mm. Mm.
in the 1800
Tolerant.
and the same. And so they revenged, not telling them that tomato, potatoes, and eggplants and peppers and tobacco are poison. But Pizarro and Cortés, the two conquistadores, because Pizarro went to Mexico City and Cortés went central south, they had as mistresses to medicine women, because the normal soldiers had women for the native populations, but the chiefs, they had these as mistresses or maids, whatever, these medicine women, which were very high in rank and also in knowledge. And if you study the story of the conquer of Mexico City and Montezuma, done by Cortés, with only 200 soldiers, he conquered the town of 2 million people. But thanks to the suggestions of this medicine woman who was his mistress, and she knew all the secrets of
Mm.
Montezuma, because she was so angry with Montezuma because Montezuma killed her family. And she told Pizarro, be careful, these tomato, potato, they are poison. Don't eat them. But Pizarro was not a scientist, he was only a general. So he wrote a letter to the Spanish king, and also this is recorded. He wrote a letter to the Spanish king saying, be careful, because I got news that these vegetables that have been brought from the New World to Europe, they're toxic and they're poisonous. But the people who received these letters, also Cortés, Pizarro had the same. So also Pizarro wrote letters to the motherland, but they started to mock them and say, but you are crazy. We are eating them already
Mm.
4 years and nobody's dead. But here comes the real revenge of Montezuma, because these vegetables, they are called, in English, they are called nightshades, deadly nightshades.
Mm.
There is not a joke, it's real. So these vegetables, they have a toxic effect on the body, which does not occur immediately. It occurs slowly in creating a decaying of the organs. So even generational. So if you're very strong, your body can cope with it, but your organs start to be intoxicated. Then you pass this information in the genes of your children and so on. So that's why it's a terrible revenge. It's in a way, just to make an example, when you want to kill the rats are very intelligent animals, and when they see a new food, they don't go and eat it. They allow the weaker ones to go and eat. And if they survive, then they understand that this is a good food, then they eat themselves. So the buyer has studied this poison that the rats eat, but they don't die immediately, but they die after 3-4 days with
Mm.
blood hemorrhage in the stomach. And so they send the weak ones to eat, they eat and they see that they survive, so they eat themselves, and they cannot recognize that this has been the cause of their death. The same, now we have so many sicknesses in
Mm.
the Mediterranean area that nobody relates with the tomato, with the aubergine, also with the peppers. The potato are also in the Mediterranean, but they are more spread from the belt, from Ireland, England,
Mm.
the Low Countries, all these northern Europe.
And you're
Imagine
saying
the
saying
germ.
so potatoes are not good because that is like the staple diet for a lot of the people in my country, whether you have chips or crisps or your mashed potato or boiled potato or roast potato, and I'm thinking of growing potatoes, but you're saying that these are also toxic to the human body.
Yes.
That's
If you
incredible.
like, I quote Rudolf Steiner. I don't know if
China, yeah.
your Rudolf Steiner was an incredible genius. And when he was speaking about the tomatoes, the potatoes, he was saying potatoes are digested by the brain. When I heard this the first time, I did not understand. It took me few weeks of thinking and understanding. Then one day, maybe I got the understanding, because the potatoes are great stealers of minerals. In fact, when I was a child, somebody was burnt or had a problem. They were taking the slices of the fresh potatoes, they were putting on this burns or on the swelling of the body, because the potato has this capacity to absorb this. But in the body, they absorb the minerals, which are the the most important, let's say, ingredients for the sodium potassium pump for the brain and nervous cells. And unfortunately and tragically, all these nightshades, potatoes especially, they are very addicted. So
Mm.
when you eat this food and you get addicted to them, it's very difficult also to break the habit. And because well, if we stay here, we will stay for months, because I have to tell you all the experiences I had in life. But for example, for the tomato, I took 12 years to detoxify. 12 years of not having
So
them
that's my
and
next
cleaning and work.
question. Sorry, Michelangelo, just my next, because I know a time, because we're coming up for an hour now.
Yes.
And I'm
Wow.
finding it fascinating, absolutely fascinating. I haven't even got to the solution-based things. But for people that have had a staple diet of potatoes
Yeah.
or tomatoes, or how do we detoxify? What is the solution? And is there a
Well,
solution? And what
the
should we
first
eat?
solution is to stop eating them. First solution. Otherwise, you keep on the intoxication. The second one is to use vegetables and herbs which have a clear power of cleaning these toxins, which are not so easy to be cleaned. So I also suggest some people, because I was also student with a Celtic alchemist, probably one of the last Celtic alchemists. We are using the vapors of certain herbs to induce in the body a reaction like almost homeopathy to get rid of these toxins. But for sure, you have to stop eating them. Otherwise, you enter in the perverse cycle of dependency and you don't get out. And in the meantime, for the potato the tomato is terrible, the potato itself. With the pepper and the aubergine, I see that the people become more aware because the peppers are terrible for the stomach, spleen, and pancreas, and all the organs which are related with them. And the aubergine are very also emotionally depressive, because also these nightshades, they have also emotional negative qualities in which they put the people into. So that's why we should also, I know that some people, they have the habit to eat this kind of food. It's very difficult to break the habit because there is also the ritual of eating them. So for example, in 1989, I had the trip in the Hawaii, and the pilot of this Beechcraft Bonanza, we became friends because, as I told you, I'm a crazy fan of aviation, and I was his second pilot. We landed in Maui, and I told him about my story, that I was not eating nightshades and everything. He said, "Oh, but here it's your paradise, because Maui is the island of Hawaii where they grow the best taro potato." And the taro potatoes were the secret of the Polynesians, because when the first explorers like Cook and all these Drake, and they came to the Polynesian islands, they reported that they never saw people so physically beautiful as these Polynesians, and they did not understand why. But then it was discovered later, much later, that the taro potato, which was at the base of their diet, because with the taro potato you can use as potatoes, but you can use as flour, you can make bread, you can make pasta, you can make everything, like semolina pasta or the couscous. In fact, there is also a beautiful Elvis Presley song in which he speaks about eating the poi on the beach of this island. I think it's Hawaii. He was drinking and eating the poi. It was a song from Elvis Presley. And and then they discovered that the taro potato has a faster effect on the center of appetite, which diminishes the appetite, so you tend not to overeat. When with the other food like grains or the normal potatoes, also you may tend to overeat and also have indigestion. With a taro potato, you cannot have indigestion because you stop earlier to eat them during a meal. So that's another beautiful aspect of this potato. Then there are
And
many other
can you
substitutes. They
confirm
are the
what is this
they are the
potato? This
other
isn't
potato.
the sweet potato, the yam. What kind of potato is this?
Yeah, that's good. That's good. The sweet potato and the yam are good. They are edible. It is only
Yeah.
the normal potato with all the other
Right.
aspects. There is the violet potato. They did many different varieties, but the nightshade potato is, I suggest not to eat if you want to stay healthy.
So what
And
should we eat? What should we eat to recover from the toxins that we've been ingesting for, like you say, from our parents and
okay,
throughout our lives? What should we eat and what should we do to
well, a
detox?
very simple cleaner are the seaweeds.
Seaweed.
So I suggest to eat the kombu seaweed or kelp, or the wakame, the dulce, the arame. Then there are many. Imagine my son is He's working in Japan because he graduated in an economical and scientific university, the Temple University of Philadelphia, in psychology. He has many different degrees, but his profession is a vegan cook, and he teaches to the normal cooks how to become vegan. And he's working in Okinawa at the moment in a great, probably one of the greatest resort, 5-star resort there. And he's teaching the people the transition also how to change. And he told me a few months ago that in the seaweeds, there is in the algae, there is not one which is toxic for the body. So whatever seaweeds you're going to eat, it will not harm you. But for what is my knowledge, which is very limited, unfortunately, what we suggest is to clean the liver, for example, is the wakame. To clean the kidney, you should use the arame. To clean in general, the kombu is spectacular, and you can have the kelp, because the Atlantic kombu is called kelp in our
Right.
regions, and you can put it in our daily food, so it will help you to clean. In order also to some other ingredients which are in the grains, between because we learn from the macrobiotics to eat the whole food, but
Yeah.
the ancient people were not stupid. They were taking off the hull of the bran of the grains, because between outside the grains, the grains defend themselves from the parasites with toxic ingredients. So these should be taken off, and then the rest is very good. Inside there is also the biotin, which is also very good, like the kelp. And these biotin are very good also for the radiations. In
Mm.
fact, after the atomic bomb in Hiroshima and Nagasaki, they saw that the people who survived the best were the people who were eating more seaweeds, which are the poor people.
Mm.
So it's quite interesting. We can eat also. There are very good herbs which are helping to clean. One is the tuya, and they should be used in this form of a vaporized form, and another one is mugwort. And in case you need
Mm.
some more information, and you can ask Pauline, because Pauline is say helping me in England just for what has to be done in this
What
direction.
about
And
what
then
about
eat yes,
what
please.
about a staple diet? Because okay, I hear what you're saying. You know, to eat seaweeds is great, but when you're living in the West, it's sometimes quite hard. If you're in Japan, I know maybe it's just a whole change of mindset. But and also you're talking about things to clean the liver, herbs. What about the substantial food that we're used to when you've got the carbohydrates? You know, whether it is the pasta or the bread, the potatoes, because we need to eat something so we feel full.
Hey, uh, I spent the last 45 years of my life to create a possibility to change without changing too much our daily diet and our daily taste and everything. And Pauline can send you the list of the yes food and no
Mm.
food, and also how to deal with them in order to have a more, let's say, uh, traditional diet approach in terms of taste. Because what was my big breakthrough, it was also not only after I understood that nature is perfect, but when I was studying iridology, my teacher saw my liver in my eye, and he said, "But Jesus, what did you do to your liver?" And I say, "I did nothing. Only I was dying a few 4 years ago, and now I still feel that there is something wrong with me." But say, but you have to understand that your body, because he knew I loved motors, engines, planes, cars, and everything, as many Italians, of course. And he told me, but you would never put the wrong petrol in
Mm.
in the engine of your car or your plane. So why do you put the wrong in the wrong food in your body, which is you take care more of your car than your body. And then this was a very good analogy. It has triggered in me the understanding. And from that moment, I decided not to eat anymore the wrong fuel for my body. And it was 45 years ago, I think, 44 years ago. And from that moment on, I've been, and I have to say that it paid. I got so much out of it that is incredible. So, but in the meantime, I realized that when I was offering to my clients, because I was already working in treatments and everything, and many treatments are not needed, they could be resolved only eating the right food. Imagine this. I was telling the other day in Hastings that we were speaking about allergies and everything. That my first case of the most severe allergy, it was a lady that she had 220 allergies, and she could not get the treatment because at that time I was very good with the reflexology. I had to hire five of my colleagues because I had so many treatments to do I could not do by myself. And I had a waiting list which was longer and longer and longer. So I had to hire five colleagues, which I consider very good. And we were giving treatments for the allergies. And then with the reflexology, the allergy was totally released and neutralized. This lady, she could not have the reflexology because she was busy, and she told me, what can I do to prepare myself to have the allergy treatment in reflexology? So I told her, eat this food. And she had this food properly for 5 or 6 months. And after 6 months, she did not have any more allergy. She was my first case in 1981.
Wow.
So not yesterday, many years ago. And this lady proved that she did also the reflexology, because anyhow, reflexology is an incredible recharge of the energy of your life in your organs, in your body. And this is fantastic. But I learned from her that without eating the proper food, you will always return to the old patterns, to the old symptoms and everything.
Michelangelo, we've been on for about an hour now, I really, which is
I
fantastic.
apologize.
I'm very grateful. I don't think we've even touched the surface yet. I'd like to repeat this. I'd like to do another session with you if I may. But I think
Yes.
an hour for people watching this is a lot of information to take in, but they've got an idea of your background. What you've created is something called the Natural Life System. This is your baby as such. This is your product, isn't it? This is your method of helping people to get back
Yes.
to homeostasis, full healthy way of living. If I may, I mean, if there's something you want to just close this session with, and then I'll arrange
Yes.
with Pauline, who's sitting next to you, if anybody sees a face pop
Yes.
in, that's
Yes.
Paul.
She's there. She's there.
Hello. And what I'll do, I'll add on the description how people can get hold of you, because you do come to the UK and
Yeah, I come
occasionally.
often, and
Yeah.
Pauline knows when it is, so they can connect with Pauline, and she will send out the informations about my coming every
Yeah.
time. Before the COVID, I was coming every month. Then with the COVID, I was stranded in England for 5 months.
Yeah.
I did the COVID, first COVID break, lockdown, all in England. It was fantastic.
Yeah.
And then the second COVID breakdown I did in the Canary Islands, so at least I could
Get
enjoy a
some
better
sunshine.
weather. And then I am an anarchist for these incredible, awful laws that they did to smother our rights and our individuality and our
Yeah.
identities. Anyhow, uh, Pauline, if you want, you keep in touch with Pauline, and
Yeah.
she will give you all what you need.
Yeah. Well, I'll
I will
discuss that
come,
with
but we
about
did
what.
not decide yet the date,
Yeah.
so you will know the dates.
Once we finish recording, I'll talk to Pauline afterwards. But I think for you and
Yes.
I, we'll say cheerio. Thank you so much. I
Thank
think what
you.
well, it's just quite amazing when you talk about potatoes and tomatoes. I think, oh my God! But I hear what you're saying, because I know over the years I've had friends that lived off tomatoes, peppers, and like, is it ratatouille? Because it's very slimming. Women
Yes,
that want very slim, so they,
yes,
and their tongue, there's like fissures in the tongue. There's been dents in the tongue from overeating this kind of
yes.
food. So I totally hear what you're saying. Potatoes has blown me though, because I love potatoes, but I need to reconsider this and change the habit, get a whole new diet. And
But you
also the
don't have to change the habit. You don't have to change the habit, but change the product. So
change the product.
I wish you could meet Pauline physically. Maybe you get
I'm sure we
invited
will.
one evening, and she will make all the
Um,
ranges of
yeah.
taro recipes. So you will find what are those who please you best, and you can change and trade from the normal potato to the taro potato, and the
Well,
yam and the
we can do
cassava
that
and
when,
everything.
yes, when Pauline comes over, we can arrange to do something like that and maybe do a show. In the
Yes,
meantime, I better cut it now because, as I say, we've gone over the
sure,
hour, so we'll lose.
sure. Sorry,
It's a
sorry
long
for
time for
that.
people to watch. So thank you so much. Stay on the show whilst I talk to Pauline. And to those that are watching, as I say, you've been watching Michelangelo. I cannot say your second name. Chiecchi.
Chiecchi, Chiecchi. It's
Chiecchi.
Italian.
Yeah, Michelangelo Chiecchi, lovely.
Yes.
And his natural life system. And I'll put the details if you want to get in touch
Thank
with
you.
him. And so thank you for your time. And for those who
Thank
have enjoyed this video, please like it, subscribe to the channel so you get more information, and share and comment. And we will see you next time. Okay. And I'm just
you.
going to turn
Thank
us
you.
off.
Thank you.